Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Ironwoman. We have spoken to Endorphin Dude. What can we say about him? He is a former insulin-dependent couch potato turned into an ultra runner. What does it take to be an ultra runner? We get to hear other acronyms like DNF, means did not finish. BQ means Boston qualifier. It's almost as if we're learning another language. Tony, the Endorphin Dude, is the ultra runner. Enjoy the journey that he takes us on. Thank you so much, Tony, for having us. Amazing. I think that's the only word we can say, or maybe crazy.
That's cool. I was like, all right, I guess I'm an ultra guy now. So let's find a 50K, a 50 miler. And then once I hit those distances, the natural progression was to hit the 100 miler. Because in ultra running, so marathons and half marathons, when you finish one of those races, you get a medal. That's standard, a medal. Well, for the 100 miler, the standard token or standard bling that you get is a belt buckle. So that's the thing. And it just became this thing where I was like, I want a belt buckle. I'm going to get myself a belt buckle. Well, they say I turned to the dark side and I started training for a 100 miler. And at my first 100 miler, I DNF'd at mile 88. It was so heartbreaking because I just didn't have any gas left in the tank and DNF'd at mile 88. I mean, can you imagine going that far and you're less than a half marathon away?
How do you train?
You have to pile on the mileage. You got to train your mind and your body to be able to withstand all the miles. You want to get in at least X number of miles. You work your way up. In the beginning, you start out by doing 3 times a week, doing like 4 miles on Monday, 6 on Wednesday, 4 on Friday, and then back-to-back long runs on Saturday and Sunday, like 18 on Saturday and 22 on Sunday. You want to get those back-to-back long runs on weekends in. When I first started, I followed a formal plan, but now that I've done so many of them, I just kind of know what I need to do and what my body can handle. When I threw out the mileage numbers earlier, I'm not a coach. I want to let your listeners know I'm not a coach. So I'm just telling what I did and what worked for me. So what I did won't necessarily work for everyone. The key to training for let's say a 100-mile race is, yes, it is athletic ability. You need to be able to physically do the distance. So you have to train your body on the physical level. But I'll tell you, a huge percentage of this is mental. I mean, it's mental. And when I say mental, there are intangibles that you need to think about when you're training and running a 100-mile race. I ran a race about 5-6 years ago, a 100-mile race, where I'm usually at these hundreds, I'm usually in the back of the pack. I'm in the back of the pack. And I remember there was this kid. To me, anyone under 30 years old is a kid because I'm kind of a little bit older. And he was running his first 100-miler. And this was a 5-loop course. This kid kept passing me. I'm just taking my time, doing my thing because I know what I need to do to pace. This kid was at least 15 miles ahead of me, I think it was. Well, it turns out he was running his marathon BQ pace at 100-miler. He was doing like a sub 3 hour marathon pace at 100-miler. And it's like, you can't do that. I mean, unless you're like elite, like unless you're like Jim Walmsley it's like, wow. So he ended up completely blowing up at like mile 60 and he ended up dropping. My point is that it's a mental thing. You have to think, you have to tell yourself, oh, I have to pace myself. Okay, I can't go out too fast here. I got to pace myself. You got to think about nutrition. It's calories out, calories in. You have to replenish the calories. For every 4 to 5 miles, I have to like replace those calories. I'm constantly eating at an ultra.
What do you eat?
The thing about ultras, what I love about ultras, I tell people all the time, the reason why I run these 100-milers is because I'm too slow for Boston. And the thing is that when you run a fast marathon, you can't stop at an aid station at mile 80 and sit down and eat pizza. You can't. Can you imagine running the Boston Marathon and stopping at an aid station and eating pizza and then just continuing? I eat a lot of, I don't just take goos and gels. I eat like food. So I eat sandwiches, pizza, whatever they have at the aid station, quesadillas, grilled cheese sandwiches, just whatever they got. Lots of chips because I like the salt. You need the electrolytes. You got to think about nutrition. You got to think about hydration. You got to think about sleep deprivation too. You got to think about that because if you're running a 100-mile race, you're out there 24, 25, 26, up to 30 hours, maybe more. My fastest 100-mile finish time is 26 hours and 22 minutes. My slowest was 41 hours. So I ran, it's called the Headlands 100. So it was 20,000 feet of elevation gain over 100 miles. And the time limit was 43 hours. I finished it with 2 hours to spare.
Unpack this. How do you do that?
Well, I typically don't drink caffeine anyway. I typically don't. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I do drink some teas on a regular basis, and some teas have caffeine. I have to wean myself off of caffeine at least 3 weeks before a race. And so that's the kind of things you have to do to prepare yourself for the possibility of sleep deprivation. Like the last couple of 100 miles that I've run, no issue with sleep deprivation because I completely detoxed myself of the caffeine. But with that Headlands 100 one, that one was hard because my start time was at 7 p.m. on a Friday night. Basically, I had to run through 2 nights instead of like 2 days and 1 night. I remember telling my pacer, it was Saturday afternoon. I was probably at mile 43 or something like that. I just said to him, dude, I need to pull over. I need to take a nap. I pulled over on a trail, found a log and used it as a pillow and just slept on the trail. And hikers would come by and it's like, is he dead? Is he okay? My pacer's like, he's just sleeping. It's okay. He's running a 100-mile race because he's stupid. You take naps where you can if you absolutely need to. But for someone like me, who's a back of the pack guy, I can't afford to lose that time. And secondly, there's a term in ultra running, beware of the chair, because once you sit down, you don't get up. So you don't want to spend too much time at an aid station. You don't want to spend too much time sitting in a chair. I often find myself, if I absolutely need to take a nap, I would like just crawl up in like the most uncomfortable spot that I could. I know that I won't get too comfortable. I only sleep for 12 minutes because I was told once that by a seasoned ultra runner that 12 minutes equates to 1 mile. If you exceed 12 minutes, you're losing mileage. I always say 12 minutes only. I set my alarm clock and I'll nap for 12 minutes. And just get up again. And sometimes that's all you need. You just need like that quick burst of like, oh, okay, I got the energy now. So I can go again. I probably took like 3 naps during that race.
And how many of these have you done?
Have completed 12. 100-mile endurance runs. So 12 to date. So
And is there a club for that, or is that part of the Marathon Maniacs?
oh, I'm sure there are, but at this, for me now, the clubs that I join that I am part of are just my local running friends.
You mentioned you had a pace. How
Yes.
does that work?
At a 100-mile race, at most 100-mile races, you're allowed sometimes it's called a pacer, sometimes it's called a safety runner. You're allowed to have someone pick you up at mile 60 and at mile 80. Most of the races I've run, I've had pacers, but I recently started to try to run without one. So I recently ran a race in Texas called Brazos Bend in Texas in December. And I wanted to do that without any pacers and with limited crew, because I needed to sharpen my mind. That's how you become a stronger ultra runner. It's up here. You gotta sharpen the mind. By not having a pacer, I had to think for myself. I have to rely on my own drop bags. I don't have someone. It's like, hey, can you fill this up with water for me? I have to do everything on my own. It's all about time management. I've always been told that pacers are heaven sent. They're great. If you run a 100-miler or any race screwed, that means you do it without a crew or pacers. If you can get through a 100-miler screwed, then you've really toughened yourself, and it just makes you stronger. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to run all these things without a pacer.
What are the tips you have for somebody who wants to enter this? Now I feel like, oh my God, this would be something interesting. But I know it's about the discipline. It's about the energy. It's about taking the time. I did Ironman, which was a long day for me, but not sleeping and running through the night. I don't know.
Ironman scares me because I'm afraid of sharks and piranhas. I don't want to be in the water and have a piranha eat my foot. I kind of need it for my ultra running. No piranhas. You have to want to do this. I talk to a lot of first-time runners first-time aspiring 100-mile finishers, and they always ask me the same question. And one question that I get all the time that frustrates me is that a standard 100-miler has a 30-hour cutoff time. If you break down the pace for a 30-hour 100-mile race, that breaks down to 18 minutes per mile overall. I can just walk 18-minute mile. And I have to explain to people when they say that to me, is no, it doesn't really work that way. Sure, you can probably walk an 18-minute mile and faster. It gets exponentially harder at the 100-mile distance. At a 100-mile race, the first 100K is just the warm-up. It's what you can produce after mile 62. In that 38 miles, the back end 38 miles, that's when the sleep deprivation kicks in. That's when that one little blister that you have on your left toe becomes like the size of a grapefruit in your mind. That's when everything aches more. Every little thing becomes exponentially more painful. You have to mentally get over those hurdles in the latter part of the race. What you can produce in the final 35 to 40 miles will determine if you buckle or not.
And now we have a guest. We have the cat coming to the podcast.
Kitty, you want to say hello, Kitty?
Hello, Kitty.
A lot of people who know me knows that I have a little dog. I have a little Trini. She's a little 5-pound dog. Well, she's in an inappropriate relationship with this cat right here. They've been together for about 10 years, and they snuggle too much. It's inappropriate. It's interspecies love. I can't allow that in this house. So the thing though is that it's easier to manage your mindset at a shorter distance. When you get to that 100-mile level, everything becomes up here. When you get to mile 70, 80, you're freaking tired. Your legs hurt, and you got a giant hill you got to climb. And you also have to be mindful of the clock, because it's ticking. If you're falling behind, you got to manage your your time. So that's where the mental toughness kicks in. At one race that I ran, it wasn't even a 100 miler, it was a 50 miler, but I was cutting it so close to all the cutoffs. I made the mile 41 cutoff with 2 minutes to spare. And then I made the mile 47 cutoff with like a minute but I finished the race with like only 2 minutes to spare. And this 50 miler had 7,800 feet of elevation gain over 50 miles. So lots of climbing. There was a hard cutoff at mile 49. Who puts a hard cutoff at mile 49? You would figure if you make it to mile 49, come on, there's only like a mile left. Let them finish. Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't mile 49. It was mile 48. It was mile 48. Hard cutoff at mile 48 with like a minute 38 seconds to spare. I looked behind me. There were all these headlamps flashing. I knew that everyone behind me who had a headlamp was going to get cut at mile 48 of a 50-mile race. Isn't that heartbreaking? I told you earlier that I have 12 100-mile endurance run finishes. But do you know how many DNFs I have? I have more DNFs than I do finishes. I probably attempted, I'd have to look up the numbers because I haven't looked at it recently, but I believe I've attempted about 35 100-mile races and I've only finished 12. So I have about 17 or 18 DNFs, but I keep trying. Because I enjoy, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I enjoy the distance. I enjoy the challenge. I like running these 100-milers. That's how hard these things are. It's with like a marathon, typically it's a low DNF rate. But when you get to the 100-miler, the one I told you about in Texas that I ran, I believe there was like a 51% drop rate.
Thank you so much and good luck. And what do you say?
I think we say don't die.
I don't know. I love the game with the mindset. It's about becoming stronger. It's about being self-sufficient. Take it from the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday, every Wednesday. Don't miss out. There's something for everybody. Check on us on YouTube, Instagram. Thank you for your support.